Thank you so much to Dawn for those words. Friends, you're holding so much today. Days passing, changes in the world, the other struggles that you may not have mentioned. Will you take an easy breath with me? I'll pray, but you don't have to. You can meditate, rest, or just wait a moment and we'll be finished. Our friend, as we gather today, we hold these many things. We hold a struggle for what is right and good in the world. We hold sorrow and joy together closely. As we hold, the world asks much of us to work, to wait, to help. But inside, we need the thing that will call us forward, the strength, the courage, and the mutuality for this day. For that, we have each other. For all these things, I give thanks and say, Amen. I'm going to click a button or two. And then I'm going to remind you that in 1938, there were two artists named Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. And they were young working class Jewish men responding to a world marked by fascism, economic collapse, and the rise of unchecked power. Do you know what they did? They created Superman. In a BBC interview reflecting on that moment, Jerry Siegel said, "The world was in pretty bad shape, and I know right now it's not in such wonderful shape either, but back in those days, Nazism was rising up, and a lot of innocent people were being killed, and countries were being invaded, and a lot of innocents slaughtered. And I felt that the world desperately needed a crusader, if only a fictional one. So the question becomes, does the world desperately need a crusader? That longing makes sense. When systems feel overwhelming, we start wishing for someone super. One answer to the longing is the story of Witold Pilecki. Not super, but anti-super, reminding us of the importance of being exactly who we are called to be. Today, I will tell you about him from the work of Mark Manson. Pilecki was already a war hero when he made the most dangerous choice of his life. In 1940, as Polish officers and leaders began disappearing into a vast new prison complex called Auschwitz, it became a terrifying blind spot. No one knew what was happening inside. So Pilecki volunteered to find out. He allowed himself to be arrested and sent there on purpose. What he discovered was not just brutality, but a system designed to erase people completely. Prisoners were worked to death, shot for minor offenses, reduced to numbers, and still Pilecki organized. He built networks. He smuggled out reports describing mass murder and extermination. Some of the first eyewitness accounts of what we now call the Holocaust. He begged for intervention. If the camp could not be liberated, he pleaded, at least bomb the gas chambers, destroy the machinery of death. No one came. Pilecki eventually escaped and continued to tell the truth. He survived the war. He did not survive silence. After the war, he was executed by another regime for refusing to stop reporting what power wanted hidden. Pilecki did not defeat the system he exposed. And that matters because heroism is not just bravery or clever maneuvering. Those things are common and often used in unheroic ways. Heroism is the ability to conjure hope where there is none, to strike a match in the void, to show us a possibility for a better world. Not a better world we want to exist, but one we did not know could exist. Bravery is common, but heroism has a philosophical core. There is a why that does not break. This is why we are so desperate for heroes now. Not only because things are bad, but because we have lost clarity about what that why is supposed to be. We do not actually need crusaders. Crusaders arrive with power. They conquer. They decide who deserves saving. They leave behind rubble and call it justice. What we need are witnesses. Witnesses to tell the truth, even when it is inconvenient. Witnesses who refuse to be silent. Witnesses do not confuse power with righteousness. Witnesses remind us that no life is disposable, no land is expendable, and no truth is optional. If this feels heavy, if this feels hard, it's not because you don't have enough faith or enough strength. Noticing the world as it is can break our hearts open. Witness does not make us immune to grief or fear. It makes us honest about them. We are not asked to carry this alone, and we are not asked to fix everything we see. We are asked to stay human, together, in the face of it. When we say things are bad, but we are together, we are asserting a value stronger than any nation state. Human solidarity is not a consolation prize. It is a form of power. That is why clarity matters. To insist that war is morally wrong is not naive idealism. It is an ethical discipline. Colonial power thrives on blurred language. It asks us to accept euphemisms, intervention, stabilization, extraction, security. But when a government uses military force to remove another country's leader without lawful authority, that is not law enforcement. It is coercion, backed by empire. Naming it truthfully is an act of resistance. Our tradition teaches that legitimacy is not the same as legality, and legality is not the same as justice. Ida B. Wells used to say, "Those who commit the murders write the reports." Reason and ethics require witnesses. People who will say, "I see what is happening, and I will not call it by a kinder name." Colonialism depends on silence and technicalities. Moral communities depend on conscience and mutual care. Acting President Delcy Rodriguez said Saturday that if there is one thing that the Venezuelan people and the country are very clear about, it is that we will never again be slaves, that we will never again be a colony of any empire of whatever stripe. When Acting President Rodriguez warns against enslavement, she is naming a memory that many nations carry. The memory that help often arrives with chains. That negotiations offered at gunpoint are not negotiations at all. Whether or not one agrees with her government, that fear is not abstract. It is historically grounded. So the question before us is not simply who is right. It is who gets to decide? Who names violence as normal? Our Unitarian Universalist values call us to refuse the colonial belief that some lives require domination for their own good. We affirm instead the dignity of people, the necessity of consent, the moral weight of self-determination, and the truth that peace cannot be delivered by force without becoming its opposite. Once more, peace cannot be delivered by force without becoming its opposite. Things are bad, but we are together. That togetherness, across borders, across histories, across propaganda, is what empire cannot tolerate. It is why clarity is dangerous. It is why truth is policed, and why choosing ethical witness, even when it costs us certainty or comfort, is not weakness. It is faithfulness. What I am asking of us is not agreement on policy nor expertise in geopolitics. It is something more basic and more demanding: the practice of noticing and naming. Noticing is not passive, it is an ethical act. To notice is to refuse the numbing that power depends on. Systems of domination rarely begin with spectacular violence. They begin with small shifts in language, with familiar patterns dressed in updated vocabulary. When we practice noticing, we train ourselves to recognize when old structures return, wearing new justifications. Historically, the language was civilizing missions and anti-communism. Today, it is counter-narcotics and national security. This is not speculation. Scholars estimate that a quarter to half of interstate wars since the 1970s are connected to oil. Not because the leaders admit it, not that, but because energy access shapes what is called security, with conflicts arising from scarcity issues and consumer states. Noticing means seeing, understanding that while reasons change, the structure remains. It means recognizing the pattern: criminalize, condition sovereignty, and control resources. It means asking ourselves again and again, who is being named as dangerous? Who is being told they are not ready to govern themselves? Who benefits materially from instability being described as rescue? Noticing does not presume we already know the answer. It asks us to slow down, to resist the urge to take sides before we understand the shape of what we are seeing. In a world that profits from speed, outrage, and certainty, careful attention is a form of resistance. But noticing alone is not enough. Witness also requires naming. Naming is the moment when clarity becomes public. Naming is when we refuse euphemism and choose honesty instead. When we say war instead of operation. When we say coercion instead of intervention. When we say extraction instead of development. Naming is how we keep our moral language from being empty. Noticing and naming remind us that legality is not the same as justice, and that authority is not the same as legitimacy. They help us resist the temptation to believe that violence becomes moral once it is wrapped in the right language. This is not about cynicism. It is about care. Reverend Fred Muir, in his new book, Benevolent Intentions, reminds us that we have been given an opportunity to reconsider the values that shaped and in many ways justified the colonial mindset of religious liberals. To notice and name is to care enough about human dignity to refuse lies told for our convenience. It is to connect with people we may never meet and say, your lives are not abstractions. Your suffering is not strategic. Your sovereignty is not conditional. Things are bad, but we are together. So may we live.